All right, what I want to show you here, this is the assignment you're going to be doing, is the red pine thinning, and what we're going to be looking at is row thinning and between row thinning. Your objective for this red pine plantation is to encourage natural regeneration of the hardwoods found in the understory, if there are any, and also to provide access into the plantation for wood removal. That's what you're going to try to achieve for the crop trees. Okay, so what you're going to be doing is you're going to improve the growth of this forest and to achieve those goals. Now, your task is to calculate the basal area per hectare of the plantation, calculate how much basal area has to be removed, and you're going to also calculate how much is being removed from each row, and you're going to calculate these two are combined. You're also going to calculate or identify the trees to release as advanced regeneration. So that's the task at hand. What I want you to be able to do is complete the following table, which is going to on the next page, in the handout that was sent to you by email and also is available as a paper copy that I've given to you, is to follow this process here. And the process I want you to complete, if you notice the letters, these letters match up on the table with the functions you have to carry out. So read these carefully, and I think you will find it's pretty straightforward what needs to be done in regards to this process. So the next thing we're going to do is look at the actual table you have to fill out. All right, before we start into the actual calculations, I just wanted to point out two articles you are responsible for. The first one is Red Pine Plantation Management from the Forestry Extension Notes. Click on this and your own notes, and you'll be able to see the excellent little 4-pager on how to manage red pine plantations. The next one I want you to look at is a very important one that was used throughout Southern Ontario for managing red pine plantations, which is called Encouraging Natural Hardwood Regen in Red Pine Plantations. And that's the goal for most forest management plans in Southern Ontario, is to convert these red pine plantations, old farm fields, back into the actual hardwoods they were many years ago. All right, now what I want to do is proceed with the actual process of entering your data on this form. Again, as I presented earlier, is that the actual instructions are on the page prior, and they relate to the letters that are shown here. Okay? Now, here I have an imaginary little forest, and when you go out on your field trip, you and your partner are going to be assigned 4 rows. So our convention is rows 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 4th row is the one you're going to remove in its entirety, and that's why I have it in a dark gray. And then the next team beside you will have rows 5, 6, 7, but that'll actually be their rows 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, what you're going to do is, first of all, you're going to do 2 prism sweeps. And so for prism, do your first prism sweep about 8 trees in, and do your second prism sweep about 20 trees into your row. You're going to be assigned roughly around 25 to 30 trees in a row, if maybe a few more depending how open the area is. Okay? So let's pretend, and this is just an example, in prism sweep 1, what you found out is that you have 40 trees in that prism sweep, and you have 30 in that prism sweep. Therefore, of course, as you can imagine, the math implies that you have 35 as your average basal area per hectare for rows 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, what we want to do is, so when you do these prism sweeps, try to do them between rows, roughly between rows 2 and 3, where I have that star. That way, just because That way your prism sweep will catch more or less your rows. Don't worry if it spills into the other rows, that's perfectly fine, but try to stay roughly there. That's the goal. Now, what we're going to do is, our goal here is to remove, in this stand, is I want you to remove 40, we're going to remove 40% of the stand, which is a little bit, which is quite a bit, but this is quite a dense stand. So 40% of 35 meters squared per hectare represents a basal area of 14 meters squared per hectare we're going to remove from the stand. Now, what we're going to do now is figure out, we need to figure out what is the average rows 1, 2, and 3 basal area. And so to do that, all we're going to do is we're going to go back to our original 2 prisms and take an average. And let's say after you take those 2 average prism sweeps, excluding the row number 4, so you will not tally any trees that are found in row 4s. Okay, so when you do this prism sweep here, you're going to just count the trees that are in rows 1, 2, and 3. So let's pretend, and we did it 2 samples, and we find out that the average is 27 meters squared per hectare. Now, of course, then the question is, how much is in row number 4? And the way you do that is take the difference between these 2 values, because this is for the entire stems per hectare, the average, and this is just for rows 1, 2, and 3. So in our case, in our little example here, it would be 8 meters squared per hectare is found in row 4. Okay? So the basal area, so that means in row 4, we have to cut 8 meters squared per hectare. That's all the trees that are there, all these trees. And then the question is, how much is left to be removed in between the rows 1, 2, 3? And this is where we're going to pick up maybe tree here, tree there, and so on, right? And the way you select these trees will be based on their form, and you want to keep the best trees growing there. And if there is taller than hardwood sittings, let's say here, maybe you want to remove an additional tree to encourage its growth. But the maximum amount you're allowed to remove in rows 1, 2, and 3 is going to have to add up to 14, right? So therefore, the maximum you're allowed to remove in that row is 6 meters squared per hectare. So you can see that the total would represent the amount of 40% that I'm allowed to remove from the stand. Okay? So that's how we calculate how much to remove. So we assume that what we remove from row 4 will be roughly 8 meters squared per hectare, and the remaining 6 meters squared we have to tree mark in the rows. And that'll be our job, is to see if we can hit that target. Okay? So that's how you do those calculations. Before you begin calculating as a group the number of trees per plot, one of the things you're going to need to know is how to convert number of trees per plot to trees per hectare. And that's so important. And sometimes that can be a bit confusing, but what I want to show you here is that it's not so bad. What you're going to be doing is to calculate the area of your plot. What I want you to do is find out the number of rows and how wide is each row. So for example, in this example I've provided here, it'd be 4 rows times, and then we're saying, and let's pretend they're 3 meters wide between rows, so there'd be 12. Okay, so the one distance is 12 meters across. Then what I want you to do is find now the length of your plot, which is based on this one. Find out the number of plantable spots in a row, which is typically 2 meters, let's say, or in this example I have a 2.5 meters. Okay, so if you have 40 plantable spots, in other words, wherever a tree could have been put there, some of them may have died, right? But you have to still count those in. So if you found 40 plantable spots times the distance between each one, which represents that, then you've got 100 meters, right? 40 times 2.5. That would give you then therefore your area. Okay, this the area would be then 12 times 100, 1,200 meters squared, and then you have to convert that. Is that how much do you have to multiply your plot by to get it to per hectare? And what you do, it's quite simple. You just take 10,000 and divide this your plot into that, and that would represent the number of times you have to multiply what you find in your plot to get it up to per hectare. Okay, so that's how you would proceed in finding out what is this important conversion factor to go from your plot size to per hectare. And then down here, what you're going to be doing is looking at the stand again, but this time you're going to be doing a little more detail in respect that now that you know the base layer you have to remove, what you're going to do is figure out all the trees you need to remove. So obviously you have to remove all of the fourth row of basal area. So you have to tally all the trees. So you're going to, you and your partner are going to go down row 4 and tally all the trees that are there for row 4. Okay, so all these trees here, and so you'll tally them, and that's the number of trees in your plot to be removed. Then what you need to do then is select trees inside row 1, 2, 3, and what you're going to do is choose those trees based on good spacing, good crop trees, and the health of trees. So you'll have those trees you have all tallied. Okay? And just for the sake of time, the total, obviously, here you add up the 2 plus 2 in that 12 centimeter class is 4 trees. And then you have to calculate that, what basal areas that represent. And I've provided you with the actual basal area for each diameter. And then you just multiply the number of trees, 2 here, times the basal area of 1 tree. And that gives you the answer for row 4, 12 meters squared per hectare basal area. Repeat that process for rows 1, 2, 3. Add those two together, those two values, and then you have 0.0452. Then figure it out for totals per hectare. And all you got to do is take 0.452 and multiply it by this factor, whatever yours is. Okay, so you need to multiply this by this, and that'll give you the value per hectare of basal area for 12 centimeter trees. Now I haven't done all the rest of those, but as you can see here, down here, yeah, you will have your answers total per plot, and more importantly, the basal area total per hectare. Okay, so that'll tell you how much you're going to remove. So in this one, theoretically, you have removed 10.5 meters squared per hectare, and you remember the target was that was around there that we wanted to meet. So that's great. Okay, and then the next thing I wanted you to do was once you know how many trees you're going to remove, this is a very important part for the landowner, is what you got to do is say, well, how much is the wood worth and how much is going to be removed? That's important. So here you're going to do is you're going to say, well, if I removed 4 trees in my one plot, right? Remember the 4 times 8.3, the conversion to per hectare. which was above, right? Right here, this value here. Okay, so then, so what you're going to take is 4 times 8.3, and that's where you get this answer here. So that'll be your 33.2 trees removed that are 12 centimeters, right? Now, what is the volume of that? And I provided you here the volume for each local, for red pine, for each DBH class. And so you take this and you multiply the number of trees by the volume of one tree, and that gives you the volume total for that diameter class. How much is it worth? It's all worth 20 bucks when they're that small. So $20 for per meter cube standing, meaning the wood owner would get $20 for that wood standing in the bush. If somebody else harvested it, they would get $20 per meter cube. So what are those logs worth? $41.17, and that's per hectare. Let's pretend Buddy has 5 hectares of land, so he makes she makes $205.84 from just those trees. And the very last thing I'm asking you to do at the bottom of the page, right here, is asking you approximately how many truckloads of red pine thinnings would be removed. Remember, a good sized truck holds roughly around 50 meters cubed on a truck. Okay? So anyways, so now you'll know how much the landowner gets, and then how many truckloads are required. So you have now provided the landowner with lots of information. All right? So this is the expectation that I have for you guys to come. I want you to have this done so we can mark it. It's worth 5% of the course, and it'll be on Wednesday during the 3-hour lab you have. Thank you. Bye.